Welcome back, everyone. Today we will delve into one of the landmark cases in the U.S. Supreme Court case, Gitlow versus New York, 1925. This case is significant not just because of its implication for freedom of speech, but also because of how the First Amendment protection applies to state government and not only the federal government. Some background on Gitlow versus New York. The defendant, Benjamin Gitlow, who was a member of the Communist Party at the time, published and distributed a pamphlet called the Left-Wing Manifesto. In this pamphlet, he advocated for violent overthrow of the government. Gitlow, soon after publishing Left-Wing Manifesto, he was arrested under the pretense that he was violating the New York's criminal anarchy law, which stated that it prohibits advocacy of any attempts for government overthrow. Then Gitlow was convicted in the New York court and sentenced to prison. However, this was not the end of the case, as it made its way up to the Supreme Court, where there was a debate on whether this action violated the rights of freedom of speech. The Gitlow's case most significant major point is the incorporation of the Bill of Rights. One of the most significant outcomes of this case was how the Supreme Court used the 14th Amendment to apply the First Amendment. This method is known as the incorporation doctrine. Before Gitlow versus New York case, the only cases in which the Bill of Rights were applied were only to the federal governments. So this Supreme Court decision that the Bill of Rights applies to both state and federal government meant that state government could no longer pass laws that infringe on free speech, at least to the extent that the First Amendment allows. The second is the bad tendency test. However, the court upheld Gitlow's conviction made by the lower courts based on the bad tendency test. The bad tendency test gave the state government the power to restrict speeches that could incite any type of harm to public order. After the court reviewed the Left-Wing Manifesto, they determined that it did not have evidence that the information contained within the pamphlet could create an immediate threat to national security. But they discovered, however, that it had the potential to possibly incite violent behaviors in the near future. In the end, the court ruled that Gitlow's pamphlet Left-Wing Manifesto, which was advocating for a violent revolution, posed a threat to U.S. public safety, and therefore the state government, or New York, had the power to restrict. Dissenting opinions. This decision made by the Supreme Court was final, but not everyone agreed. People such as Holmes, who was a jurist who served as an Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, and Brandeis, who was a lawyer that served as an Associate Justice on the U.S. Supreme Court, argued that the bad tendency test was too broad and infringed on people's right to free speech. They argued that Gitlow's speech did not create an immediate danger, therefore, the state government did not have the legal rights to prohibit his freedom of speech. In many cases prior to Gitlow versus New York, it has been a standard practice that only if the cases incite immediate danger to our national security did this government have the power to prohibit the individual's freedom. One case that demonstrated this type of procedure would be Shenek versus United States, 1919. Ultimately, Holmes and Brandeis both believed that the immediate danger to our national security or public safety would not be caused by the information in the pamphlet. This case was highly significant for two reasons. Expansion of free speech protections. Gitlow versus New York laid the groundwork for future Supreme Court case decisions that would protect the free speech more robustly. This case signified the shift toward recognizing that the Bill of Rights could be enforced by the federal government and state government matters. And through previous cases, there will be continuous use of the Bill of Rights in cases involving state government. This case contributed to ongoing debate about the proper relationship between state government and federal protections. Ultimately, it demonstrates that the Bill of Rights apply to both state government and federal government. Now, on to our key terms to remember. Key terms to remember is the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment expanded the protection of the Bill of Rights to include the state actions through its due process clause leading to the incorporation of the First Amendment. The second one to remember is our incorporation doctrine. The principle that the Bill of Rights applies to state through the 14th Amendment. Our third is our bad tendency test, a legal standard that allows the restriction of speech if it has the potential to incite illegal activities. The last one is our First Amendment. No law respecting an establishment or religion or prohibiting the free exercise, therefore, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And that is my Gitlow versus New York. Thank you.